Throughout her career, Usha Vance has maintained a low profile. Truthfully, she won't accept anything less. Prior to her encounter with JD Vance, her acute legal intellect was her greatest strength. Now that she's had enough of hiding, she steps out into the spotlight to explain what it means to be by JD's side. What did Usha give up to ensure that her husband may pursue his dreams? In a political sense, how does this disclosure impact them? Come along as Usha Vance reveals the shocking truth at last. Residue from being quiet. The blue silk sari was worn on a chilly January morning in 2025, as the winter sun swept across the Capitol steps. It wasn't for show that she showed up at the inauguration. It was the culmination of years of deliberate decision-making and modest sacrifice. Underneath her composed demeanor lay the narrative of a woman who abandoned a rapidly ascending legal profession for the wildly unpredictable realm of politics. It was an unlikely journey for 39-year-old Usha to become the first Hindu second woman in the United States, beginning with her studies at Yale Law School. A successful career at Munger, Tolles, and Olson was formed by Usha, the daughter of Indian immigrants who settled in California. Emphasizing complex civil litigation. She had no lost cases in her first 3 years of practice, and her colleagues thought she was a genius. However, JD was faced with a life-altering decision when her political career gained momentum. According to Maria Rodriguez, who was Usha's legal partner and with whom she had worked closely, the most difficult part of leaving the company was not only leaving Usha but also saying goodbye to the cases to which she had devoted so much time and energy. These instances weren't ordinary. She had spent years advocating for causes in which she firmly believed. She was particularly interested in one of those cases. As a lifelong advocate for minority voting rights, Usha had worked tirelessly on this issue throughout her clerkship with Chief Justice Roberts. Separating from something of such significance wasn't easy for either of them. Nevertheless, both of them could see the broader picture of what lay ahead. Leaving a prominent legal career to become a political spouse was no picnic. Usha had to find a middle ground between the political norms of the United States and the values held by her Indian family. She figured out methods to incorporate both the meat and potatoes culture of Ohio and her Hindu vegetarian lifestyle. She figured out how to be present at campaign events without being too vocal or supportive. She remains an individual, though. Much beyond her professional life, she gave her all. The public's interest in JD increased in tandem with his political career. Close scrutiny was given to every gesture, garment, and statement. Usha kept her head held high and remained silent when right-wing critics assailed their interracial marriage. She chose to ignore the background noise and concentrate on taking care of her 3 children, assisting them in embracing their Catholic and Hindu heritages together. The stakes were already high when JD became the running partner of Trump. Even while Usha had previously fought tirelessly to support the administration's ideas on diversity, her experience in progressive legislation meant that they didn't always mesh. Surprisingly, though, she dealt with these difficulties with poise. Members of the staff observed that when Usha was at a private function, she would deftly change the subject from policy differences to topics on which they could all agree. By combining traditional Indian cuisine with traditional Midwestern comfort food, she transformed her house into a meeting place for people from all walks of life. In subtle ways that would go unnoticed by the unwary, the burden of maintaining equilibrium became apparent. Her former attendance at legal seminars was observed by her friends. None of the pro bono cases that she had previously worked on included her name. The astute jurist who had argued before federal courts now deliberated thoroughly before speaking publicly. Usha may have been reserved, but she certainly had an effect off camera. Assisted JD get ready for arguments, mold his message, and connect with new groups. Her writings for the Harvard Law Review used to be more focused on constitutional law, but now they're more on public service and political communication. The public's interest in Usha has only grown as she assumes her new position as Second Lady. What her silence could disclose intrigues them. Will she advocate for the plight of immigrants in American politics? How can she reconcile the administration's policies with her progressive legal background? Her responses have the power to alter the course of her personal story as well as the current American perspective on political alliances. The most subdued opinions have the greatest weight in Washington. What Usha Vance has chosen not to say reveals a great deal about the price of power and the delicate balancing act between individual values and governmental requirements. A tremendous story of survival can be found in JD's difficult history, in contrast to the peaceful sacrifices of Usha Vance, who only exhibited one side of their story. What, though, were the obstacles that the future vice president had to overcome before he could stand solid in the halls of American power? JD was a young man living in the dilapidated areas of Middletown, Ohio, where the gray sky was framed by the smokestacks of nearby factories. About survival, Vance learned early on. Sitting terrified in the back of a police vehicle in 1994, he witnessed his mom's handcuffing following a drug-fueled outburst in which she threatened their life. He was 10 years old at the time. He found some weird solace in the police car. A little respite from the mayhem that was his youth. Once bustling with steel workers, the streets now resounded with the sobs of those who had given up on their aspirations and struggled with substance abuse. After his mother, a promising nursing student, developed a heroin addiction, JD had to cope with her empty refrigerators, late-night disappearances, and broken promises. Who promptly became his primary guardian, although being 4 years his senior and possessing intelligence that appeared to surpass her years. Lindsay would smuggle food to him so he wouldn't go hungry when their mom neglected to buy groceries. Despite juggling her duties between shifts at the local diner, she would still assist him with his homework. Lindsay was there to protect him, and her concern for him went beyond the little things. To the problematic men who passed through their life like phantoms, never staying put but always making an impression, Lindsay remained a reliable presence for him throughout. The person who would truly impact his life, though, was his grandma Mamo. A strong woman who provided him with more than just a place to sleep. She also kept a .44 Magnum by her bed and swore like a sailor. He found stability through her. Always reassured him that he would not meet the same fate as them, despite their dirt and cigarette smoke. At her little abode on Central Avenue, JD found a sanctuary where completing homework was mandatory and where laziness was not tolerated. There, among Mama's stringent regulations and home-cooked meals, JD began to fantasize about a future apart from his own. As his pals played video games, he started reading voraciously, consuming books about. Even though he made progress in his grades, the guilt from his past followed him around like a shadow. He excelled in school, inventing excuses for his mom's chronic absence from parent-teacher conferences. His initial genuine escape route was provided by the Marines. He departed from the accustomed hardships of Middletown for the rigorous regimentation of boot camp at the age of 19. The military provided him with more than simply a way forward. It introduced him to a different type of family, one that prioritized common objectives over common suffering. Throughout his 4 years of duty, which included a stint in Iraq as the Corps' public affairs officer, JD gained strength and leadership qualities that could never be taught in a classroom. It was night and day when JD stepped foot on Ohio State University's campus after his discharge from the Marines. For the most part, JD was just trying to make it through college, while his peers were off having fun and dating. He was haunted by the memory of those hard days when money was short and had to work numerous jobs just to pay his bills. In spite of everything, JD succeeded. He proved that he could overcome insurmountable obstacles by working tirelessly and maintaining his focus to earn a degree in political science in under 2 years. Attending Yale Law School seemed like an unattainable goal until it became a reality. He passed through the illustrious halls where presidents and justices of the Supreme Court had studied, thanks to the same determination that had enabled him endure his difficult childhood. But all the while he wore outdated suits to constitutional law seminars and studied late into the night. In his imagination, he could still hear the sirens of Middletown. While JD's narrative may have ended like any other tale of escaping poverty, he chose a different path. He stopped trying to hide his background and started using it to better comprehend America's larger issues. His life's journey connected him to two realms, the rough streets of his youth and the world he now traversed. No matter what, the lessons he learnt as a child remained with him. Getting out isn't the only thing that matters for survival, you also need to know your origins and the reasons for your forced departure. Although JD's difficult upbringing strengthened his resolve, it was at Yale that fate intervened, bringing a chance encounter that would alter his entire understanding of love and belonging. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, how did a self-proclaimed hillbilly and a savvy Indian American lawyer find common ground? At the intersection of two realms, in the legendary Classroom 127 of Yale Law School, where countless prominent lawyers honed their craft, JD Vance felt out of place among the well-groomed youngsters as he sat in his outdated jacket. All of a sudden, Usha Vance raised her hand, and the situation transformed. An impromptu bond was developed after their initial encounter in constitutional law class taught by Professor Amy Chua. Her parents were doctors who emigrated from India to California, and their daughter, Usha, exuded intelligence and self-assurance. JD was captivated by her fearlessness and her ability to question conventional wisdom, which helped him overcome the burdens of his Appalachian heritage. They had some very similar chats while studying in the quiet corners of Sterling Library. As Usha explained, her grandpa overcame caste prejudice in India and went on to become a revered educator. Judith D. told him the story of Mama's struggle to provide him a better life in Middletown. Their shared understanding of the importance of meeting family expectations and achieving one's goals was evident. The storied Yale University was the setting for their early dating days. On the steps of Sterling Memorial Library, they exchanged their first kiss. Over coffee at Book Trader Cafe, they debated constitutional theory and bonded over their passion for public service law. On the other hand, they had to overcome obstacles brought forth by their cultural differences. Upon the occasion that J.D. During his first family meal in San Diego, he felt a bit out of place. Not only were the spices unfamiliar to him, but so were some of the traditions. JD could sense that, despite their warmth and welcoming nature, Usha's parents harbored some subtle worries regarding her relationship with someone from such a diverse background. Even though they didn't say it directly, he could feel it. Still in Ohio, JD came to the same realization with his own family. He was concerned about their reaction to someone so unlike their usual companions because he knew they were close-knit. Dealing with their respective families' reactions to their relationship was a whole new type of difficulty for them. When they formed a group called Social Decline in 2013, it was a watershed moment because it allowed them to talk about and understand each other's cultures. As JD spoke, Usha elaborated on her ideas regarding the triumphs of immigrants. Included sincere reminiscences of his youth. A diverse group of Yale students were drawn to their thought-provoking discussion because of their differing perspectives. In the face of adversity, their bond became stronger. Usha assisted JD in honing his presentation while reassuring him to be authentic as he struggled with feelings of not fitting in during crucial job interviews. He never left her side, ready to lend an ear whenever she faced prejudice in the courtroom. Their multicultural wedding in Kentucky in 2014 was stunning. Usha joined the group of black-suited Baptist clergy. On the tables, you could find curry dishes nestled alongside bourbon-glazed gammon. As bluegrass musicians played, Bhangra dancers swayed to the rhythm. In a creative fusion of two age-old rituals, the service included both Sanskrit prayers and Bible readings. Their household grew increasingly multicultural over the years. While engaging in meditation, he educated her on the traditions of country music and Appalachian storytelling. Bedtime stories told to their children incorporated both Hindu mythology and traditional country wisdom. Although they did succeed in conquering their differences, that wasn't their greatest accomplishment. Love can transcend all societal barriers, as their love demonstrated. Stereotypes surrounding interracial marriage were dismantled by their narrative. To question long-held beliefs regarding the worth of red states. Now their story is taught at Yale, the place where it all started, as an example of how American identity is constantly evolving and developing. The brutal realm of national politics would prove to be the greatest obstacle for JD and Usha's relationship, despite the fact that it brought together many cultures at Yale. Could the love they had painstakingly cultivated via shared cultural experiences survive the increasing political polarization in the United States? The relationship between JD and Usha Vance was exposed under the harsh light of television cameras at campaign events, revealing weaknesses that Yale had previously concealed. Their marriage came under fire from all quarters as JD rose to prominence in conservative politics. The initial individual to openly criticize was Nick Fuentes, a prominent person on the far right who holds white nationalist beliefs. Racist remarks betrayed his lack of support for conservative principles on the basis of JD's spouse. For many, it was a cruel irony. Even though JD had previously written ardently about working-class principles, he now found himself defending his family against the very organizations that his political supporters occasionally backed. In Cincinnati, behind closed doors, tensions were high. Munger, Tolles and Olson colleagues started to fret as their once promising lawyer, Usha, faced formidable obstacles on her own. It seemed like her husband's public stance against DEI programs and her work on diversity cases were at odds with each other. While anti-immigration banners fluttered alongside Make America Great Again flags at a contentious campaign gathering in rural Ohio, Usha maintained her trademark smile. However, individuals familiar with them could discern the distinction. She walked more slowly and cautiously than usual, and her handheld JDs were a little more tightly gripped. The inconsistencies mounted as JD's political career gained momentum. During charity banquets, Usha would advocate for policies that may have prevented her parents' immigration to the United States in the past. Conservative contributors who hailed statements about preserving American culture had her serve traditional Indian cuisine. Their offspring became entangled in the midst of this cultural conflict. Other parents discreetly discussed their mixed ancestry at school functions. Compromise between cultures. Liberals questioned Usha's loyalty to a leader whose policies they viewed as anti-immigration. Tensions between these groups were amplified during the 2024 Republican National Convention. Protesters outside held placards demanding racial purity as Usha went onto the stage to present her husband. She revealed their love tale, their history of Judith D. discovering the art of curry cooking, as the delegates, who had earlier applauded remarks concerning mass deportation, now sat awkwardly quiet. On social media, every inconsistency was magnified. Upon the occasion that JD supported Trump's use of the term chameleon to describe Kamala Harris in relation to his criticism of her racial identity. Do those remarks make you uncomfortable in any way as the parent of 3 children who are mixed race? Nothing makes them stop what they're doing. Listen, his only comment was that Kamala Harris can change her appearance. His detractors brought up the fact that his children were also of mixed race. Another discussion regarding the toll that political aspiration takes on individuals began when he said that his wife was strong enough to deal with it. Their relationship remained unbreakable in the face of all obstacles. They established a sanctuary at home, far from the political upheaval. Judith D., his mother-in-law, had taught him, continued to prepare Indian meals. As he backs JD's Catholic faith. The children of these immigrants learned to confidently and proudly embrace their mixed origins. However, others in political circles continued to ponder the long-term consequences of this immense pressure. Their love story, which was once viewed as a representation of America's diversity, has now become a cautionary tale about the human costs of politics, according to some. With each other by their side, JD. Then the story of their romance with Usha Vance changes. Marriage has evolved into something much more. It exemplifies the American people's never-ending fight for meaning, power, and togetherness in diversity. Even while their marriage survived the scrutiny of politics, that wasn't the final chapter. Judith D. and Usha Vance will confront their most formidable obstacle to date. In preparation for their debut on a national level. Would the burden of making history be too much for their frail bodies to bear? From aspirations at Yale to the inner circle of D.C. On the steps of the Capitol in January of 2025, an unprecedented event in American history unfolded. The individuals standing to his left were the center of attention, even as Donald Trump's ascension to power captivated the globe. Revealed the more significant shifts occurring in the nation's capital. As he took the oath of office as vice president, JD Vance, the young man who witnessed the shackling of his mother in Middletown, Ohio, raised his right hand. Usha stood behind him, her vibrant navy silk sari contrasting with the icy winter scenery of Washington. Even their harshest detractors couldn't deny the significance of the moment. Months before to this point, the journey began. When he had an impact during a discussion for the vice presidency. JD was speaking at a University of Virginia auditorium with wood panels. Took on his Democratic opponent while mentally formulating his plans with Usha's help. They honed their reactions and body language in preparation for their Cincinnati study for hours. His stellar performance in court earned her later acclaim from the New York Times. Their ascent ignited much discussion about American identity behind the scenes. Their traditional family values have been praised by conservative radio personalities who used to criticize their marriage. Even liberal critics who took issue with JD's political views had to concede that Usha's historic appointment as the first Hindu-American second lady was noteworthy. Brought about some subtle but significant shifts. A growing number of vegetarian options were served at state dinners. Their official residence, the Naval Observatory, had its first Diwali celebration. The rooms where the vice presidents had made important decisions for years were now where their children did their homework. There were additional difficulties that came with assuming their new responsibilities. Security briefings took the place of family dinners. It was necessary to coordinate the children's school runs with the Secret Service. Seeing their grandchildren even required Usha's parents, who were traveling from California, to endure a plethora of formalities. Things weren't always easy at administration policy meetings. On occasion, JD's emphasis on working-class issues ran counter to more conventional Republican thinking. Although Usha refrained from publicly discussing contentious issues, her legal training provided her with invaluable insights on constitutional matters. They accomplished a great deal in the first 100 days. In an effort to alleviate poverty in rural areas, JD's office implemented programs that were informed by his personal struggles with addiction. The role of the Second Lady was also subtly transformed by Usha, paying special attention to the needs of first-generation college students. They formed an unexpected alliance in diplomatic circles. The varied experiences of Usha resonated with world leaders. Her vegetarianism was well received by ambassadors from the Middle East during state functions. The tale they told mirrored the United States' evolving sense of self, according to European authorities. With the arrival of spring in Washington, the Vances achieved a delicate equilibrium between their official responsibilities and their personal life. Even on Sunday afternoons, JD was there, preparing doses in a restored government kitchen for the first time. Their children continued to say Hindi prayers and Catholic grace, even though they felt the burden of history on their shoulders. The triumphs and tribulations of the United States past have molded this new era of leadership. Their rise from the hallowed halls of Yale University to the very core of American power is on full display in every public appearance, policy decision, and family moment. Justice JD, may the story of Usha Vance and her trip alter the way Americans perceive love, identity, and power in our fractured world? What previously untold tales of bravery and selflessness will emerge from Washington now that Usha has spoken out? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment below. For more, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Be sure to click on the video that appears next. Get ready to have a blast with it.